Time now for the Educated Retirement Show with your host, Jay Kaplan. Jay discusses reverse mortgages and can answer your questions at 951-922-3532. Call lines are open at 951-922-3532. And now, here's Jay.
Well, afternoon on a very warm Friday afternoon, and welcome to the Educated Retirement Radio here on KMET 1490 AM, where we contemplate retirement and how to best prepare for that retirement and how to best stay successfully retired. And instead of a live guest, we don't have, he's still alive, believe me. I was on Ron Siegel's show a couple of weeks ago, and I always like to share what we talk about in regards to reverse mortgages and that kind of thing. So I've got a real treat at the end of this time. The guest, that will be our guest appearance. It will be at 4:30. So absolutely meet your retirement needs now. Top off your tank so you can make it all the way. And of course, we're talking about mostly finance, but you also need to have the right, frame of mind and the right goals in mind. So remember that the future is now, meaning that you better plan for it now, because the future comes awfully fast. Seems like just yesterday I was 6 years old, and I ain't 6 no longer. Well, yeah, I am 76. That counts as 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So knowledge is power, and our phone number, off-air phone number, as it were, is 866-955-2233, and that is 866-955-2233. And I'm here to talk about anything, whether that's reverse mortgages or just getting you education on that at all. Or we can, get sidetracked about Bigfoot and flying saucers and the other more important things in life. And the website for the show and everything else about retirement finance, including the HECM home equity conversion mortgage, is the same as the name of this show. Excuse me, theeducatedretirement.com or drhecm.com, drhecm.com, www.drhecm.com. And again, that's a more humorous way to look at it. So once you're there, you're going to see a lot of great articles, stories, and most of all, really videos. And how the HECM does it work. And some very highly regarded people have contributed with stories, etc. Also, there's a blog, and those videos actually are done with real live clients. So there's also a link to my YouTube station there, and I should get caught up. I think I'm a couple weeks behind there, but if you're looking to see any of those shows or other people here on KMET, you can always go to the KMET website or my website, and there is a place where it says watch live shows, but you can also watch all of the shows from everybody, all of the big stars here on KMET for the last several weeks. And speaking of other shows here on KMET, we always give a huge shout out to Let Grandpa Speak, the name of his show. And he is here every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And it's the best way to start your weekend with a good and happy mood. I mean, real happy mood. He was nominated for 5 Emmys and won 3. He's also a real master at barbecue beef ribs, not to mention other. But anyway, listen to his show, 9 a.m. here on KMET. And don't forget the West Coast Business Review with Daryl McCants. And he's also a real master at eating barbecue ribs and just about everything else. He's also a good friend. and so is Grandpa. He is actually a repeat offender on this show from time to time, so give his show a watch, please. It's every Wednesday at 4 p.m., and they always give a plug for this show by saying that I'm a part of his advisory board, along with Bill Morris of UCI, who's also been a guest on this show. And of course, don't forget Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show here on KMET, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. And I'm also on his show about once a month, again, talking about finance. And again, knowledge is power. And the question I keep asking here lately, when does your home loan become an asset? So let's talk about that. And my day job. And yes, I better have one. And yes, I do have one. And it is at the loan source. And my NMLS license number for doing loans is 384565. And I have a Department of Real Estate license, although you know probably if you heard this show before that I do not do real estate, but I know a lot of people in real estate. And I try to stay on top of all of that and be able to recommend things and people to you. And today is April 8th, which is Draw a Picture of a Bird Day. Did I do this picture? No, I did not do this picture.
Oh, it's upside. It's sideways.
Huh?
Well, I guess you could do it.
Oh, okay. Is this more better?
Yeah.
All right. And I think that's supposed to be a hummingbird, but
No.
no?
No.
It's just bird, generic bird. There you go.
Here's a hummingbird and an ostrich.
Oh, here's a hummingbird and an ostrich. Now, these drawings were done by NASA Nellie, and she did these in outer space. So if anything looks a little different from a normal Earth ostrich or Earth hummingbird, it's because she's did these in outer space. Good job, NASA Nellie. So pencil, pen, felt tip, or chalk, draw a picture of a bird day. Is fun for everyone. It's very straightforward. Simply draw a picture of a bird in tribute to our feathered friends. Draw a picture of a bird day originated in the United Kingdom in the late 40s and on. Draw a picture of a bird day. People all over the world draw birds. Do they really? Well, we try to draw them to the yard with a lot of bird feeders, and NASA Nellie drops a whole lot of seed from outer space onto the grounds, which we call Birdland Circle. And we've got about 9 hummingbird feeders, and we have names for them because, you know, they all seem to be colored a little bit different. So, will you draw a chicken, a peacock, a puffin, or a penguin? Get arty. Have a competition to see who can draw the best or funniest birds. Looks like between me and NASA Nellie wins out. Find a chalkboard and create a simply pop a little cartoon birdie simply pop a little cartoon birdie on your hand and introduce it to strangers on the bus. Boy, that'll be good. Anyway, it's also National Zoo Lovers Day. And don't say I belong in a zoo, because let me take a sip of coffee when I said that. Sorry for the slurping, but you know. Each year on April 8th, National Zoo Lovers Day encourages us to explore our local zoos. And did you know the Vienna Zoo, the Schönbrunn Zoo in Austria, is the oldest existing zoo in the world and has been open since 1752. And don't ask if I was there on opening day. In the United States, the oldest zoos are the Philadelphia Zoo in Pennsylvania, opened to the public in 1874, and the Central Park Zoo in New York opened in 1934. I've been to that one. The big zoo in New York, of course, is the Bronx Zoo, and there's a lot of television programs around that, which you'll see. So I'm pretty familiar with the Bronx Zoo from seeing it on television. But there are 350 zoos in the United States and more than 20 800 zoos and aquariums all over the world. There's a total of 39 animals that are extinct and in the wild and exist only in zoos. That's pretty interesting. And that's a good thing that zoos are there. The only thing I would like to see in the zoo is Bigfoot, but maybe they have zoos with us in them. The most expensive animal in zoos are the giant pandas and are found in zoos in China only and have been on loan to other zoos. I saw them at the Los Angeles Zoo several years ago. I think we waited in a line 2 hours, and the only one we saw was asleep and kind of half hiding, but there's nothing we could do about that. So the expenses to house such a panda are around $1 million per year. The animals that are rarely kept in zoos are the red panda, the common sawfish, hairy-nosed wombat. Oh, please don't use that as a nickname for me, but I can see that coming. Four-eyed turtles, and you can see I got 4 eyes right now, and twin vervet monkeys, V-E-R-V-E-T. And how do you know a zoo is a good zoo? Those individuals that claim that all zoos are bad and they must free all animals need to educate themselves. So there are many zoos that reintroduce species on the brink of extinction. And they work with governments and communities to protect species and house animals during rehabilitation and recovery. So for a start, one can check out their zoo, or you can check if their zoo is accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, AZA, A-Z-A. This is a nonprofit founded in October 1924. It continues as a group of experts with decades of experience in fields such as animal management, veterinary science, and conservation. AZA accredited zoos meet the highest standards in animal care and welfare and provide a fun, safe, and educational family experience. In addition, they dedicate, not thousands, I'm living in the past, millions of dollars annually to support scientific research, conservation, and educational programs. And you can check for your local zoo or aquarium to see if they're on the website at www.asa.org to see if they're listed. So the following zoos in California are AZA accredited: Los Angeles Zoo, SeaWorld in San Diego Zoo, no surprise there, and its Safari Park, which is really a wonderful place. And they're also included as well is the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, which is really worth a trip to. Sea Life Aquarium at Legoland in Carlsbad. Didn't even know they had one. Never been there, but I guess, well, anyway. The Santa Barbara Zoological Gardens, Charles Paddock Zoo in Atascadero, which we've gone through several times, and I never knew there was a zoo there, as well as the Fresno Chaffee Zoo. Visit the website. It's a great source of interesting information. Of course, been to the Santa Ana Zoo, and I'm sure it's not accredited because it's not big enough. But sometimes just these little community zoos are fun. So what can I say? Except it's time for another sip. And did you know the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens in Florida welcomed the birth of one of the world's most endangered primates, a blue-eyed black lemur. And what do you think? Who's better looking? Me or it? All right, we know it's it. Look at those blue eyes. And wow, it's quite a picture. And the blue-eyed black lemur is unique for more than just being endangered. They are also the only primates besides humans that have blue eyes. Blue eyes offer less sun protection than darker eyes and make them rare in the wild. The new lemur will remain in a private area with its parents until it's old enough to join the rest of the group. And the Jacksonville Zoo is also accredited by AZA, A-Z-A. And now that we're talking about, oh, I didn't show you some of the oldest zoo. This is supposedly, which one? Is it
Philadelphia?
Philadelphia Zoo. Maybe on opening day, but there's the entrance right there. Take a good look at, that's a good picture, I think. More. Oh, well, I'm going to get into this a little bit more later, but you know what? I will show it right now. This is where I think it's amazing place is the San Diego Wild Animal Park. And if there's time, I'm going to talk more about that, but it's an amazing place. I've been in a truck like that, feeding rhinos by putting my hand in their mouth with an apple, giraffes, giving them carrots, and, you know, the like. It's really, really, really cool. So with strange things like that, let's hand this over right now. I'm not sure, do I hear NASA Nellie's retro rockets or don't I? Let's let NASA Nellie come give us an update on the news of UFOs.
This is the Portage County UFO chase. Remember in 1966 we were singing California Dreamin' and these boots were made for walkin'? You remember, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
In Portage County, Ohio, at 5 a.m. on April 17, 1966, two sheriff deputies were singing another tune and were about to enter UFO history. Deputies Dale Sparrow and Wilbur Neff stopped to investigate an abandoned vehicle on an isolated stretch of road lined with trees. Sparrow said in an interview, "When I looked up, I saw this thing. It kept getting brighter. They heard a strange humming noise like an overloaded transformer and turned around to see a giant metallic UFO along with some kind of antenna. It rose behind the trees and hovered above them, drenching the ground with bright light." What followed was a 100-mile-per-hour chase that took these deputies on a ride from Ohio to Pennsylvania, over 86 miles. Nearby, a police chief heard the deputies' calls about lights in the sky, so he raced home to get his camera and snapped 3 photos of what he called 2 table saucers put together. When the object took off, so did the deputies. They described it looking like the head of a flashlight about 40 feet wide and 20 feet high. It looked like somebody had control over it. It wasn't just floating around, they said. When they came close to it, the object would speed up. If the deputies slowed down, the object seemed to wait. When it came too close, you felt like you felt the heat baking off of it. They said it was almost as if they was playing a game of cat and mouse. Along the way, the officers were joined by another officer, Wayne Houston, following in his own car. Their vehicles were running on fumes, their tires were balding, they had alerted dispatch as 3 fighter jets were in pursuit of the aircraft. The officers could pick up chatter from the pilots on their police radio. The object hovered, then shot straight up into the sky. Hundreds of people also reported seeing the saucer and heard the steady humming sound. Not long after, Major Hector Quintanilla for Project Blue Book determined whether the UFO was a security threat. During an initial telephone conversation, he asked Sparrow, "Tell me about this mirage you saw." The major said that it was the planet Venus and that the photos were fogged with processing defects. So these police officers were chasing a planet that hummed? Really? They asked the major that if that was the planet Venus, how could it move from side to side and up and down? The response was, it was atmospheric conditions. Officer Sparrow would not sign any testimony reflecting that the incident took place over just a few minutes, which is what he was urged to do by officials. And this is the same major who also investigated the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico, just 2 years earlier. The Air Force asked the officer who took the photos not to release them, but at that time, the local paper already did. The story was now in the media. Sparrow's wife said that all sorts of people came to the house, investigators, reporters. They kept him up all night, hounding him right into the ground. He eventually had a nervous breakdown. Neff's wife said he was real white, almost in a state of shock after the chase. People would make fun of him. The other officers would go as far as to disconnect their phones permanently. Officer Houston quit the police force and changed his name. I quit because of that thing, he said. People laughed at me. The city officials didn't like police officers that chased flying saucers. The object took off into the sky but left a huge impression on all the deputies that followed them the rest of their lives. It also made an impression on filmmaker Steven Spielberg as the event was created in Close Encounters of the Third Kind in the chase scene of 3 police cars pursuing a UFO, now known as the Portage County UFO incident.
Well, thank you, NASA Nellie. Yeah, I did recognize that as the beginning portion of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which in a way was one of the best parts. That and the ending was one of the best parts of the film. I know everybody loves that film, but I get a little tired of him building Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes and out of his backyard inside the house. But so be it. I know what they're trying to portray. So thank you so much, NASA Nellie. And let's hear those retro rockets. All right. So I know that in the second portion, or the second hour of this show, we're definitely going to be getting into more of the business of finance, reverse mortgages, and just finance in general with the great and the wonderful Ron Siegel. And I hope you stick around for that because it's really good. And Ron always asks the right questions. And of course, he's right here on this show, and he'll be here in a few hours at 6 o'clock. So stay tuned for that. And stay tuned while I have another sip of coffee. So as you know, we try to fill in the rest of this, not the rest of the show, not with all kinds of business, but with some nostalgia for us oldies. And of course, the youngies can find some of this interesting also. But we always do famous people's birthdays. And whose birthday is it on yesterday? In 1964, and he's 57 years old, which makes it just a kid out of him, is Russell Crowe. And his full name is Russell Ira Crowe, is an actor that has starred in over 50 films and also a director and singer. I was, until doing the research here, I was not familiar with him being a singer. And he was, born in New Zealand and spent 10 years of his childhood in Australia and then moved there permanently at 21 years of age. And Russell was born to film set caterers, food, and his father also managed a hotel. His maternal grandmother was a cinematographer. Wow. When his family moved to Australia, he was hired for a line of just one line of dialogue in an episode of a series his Godfather produced. He left school at 13 to pursue an acting career. Wise move. So Crowe began before performing, not reforming, but performing as a musician in the early 1980s and released several New Zealand singles. I wish we had one of those, but we can look it up. In the meantime, go to YouTube and see what you can find there. He got parts in Australian productions on stage, including musicals, and small parts in various television series. and in the early 2000s became a 3-time Oscar nominee for Gladiator, The Insider, and A Beautiful Mind, winning the Academy Award as Best Actor for Gladiator. And did you know Russell Crowe is a philanthropist, which is a fancy word for meaning he shares things and helps others. He made a donation, and you know that, he made a donation to a Jewish elementary school whose library had been damaged due to arson. On another occasion, he donated $200,000 to a struggling primary school near his home in Australia. The money went towards a swimming pool at the school. At the opening ceremony, he dived into the pool fully clothed as soon as it was declared open. Not bad performance. The principal then said, the many things he does up here, people just don't know about. So I guess he is well known as a philanthropist and a really good person who likes to share. And we've been trying to get a pool for 10 years, the principal had said. He donated thousands to a fundraiser to help rebuild Le Chef, a restaurant which was destroyed in the 2020 Beirut explosion. He said this was on behalf of Anthony Bourdain. He said, I thought he probably, meaning Anthony, would have done so if he were still around. And here is a short list of Russell Crowe films. And let's start with L.A. Confidential, which is just a great film, I think. And if you've seen it, you've got to agree. And here we go. The best movie of the year. I know it didn't win best movie of the year, but I don't remember what did that year. But I do remember I thought this should have been the best film of the year. It was, was it Titanic or something, which I found a bit.
I have to look
at anyway,
it. I don't know.
Not so important. This was a great film, is still a great film. And that was directed by Curtis Hanson, who I believe has passed away recently, unfortunately, and starred Guy Pearce, Kim Basinger, and Kevin Spacey, and won 2 Oscars. The Insider was 1999, and it says shocking, 2 thumbs up, I guess who. Anyway, I think I kind of remember that now. Wasn't that about the cigarettes and the...
I think so.
And the whistleblower stuff? Very good. And another great one to watch. And it was directed by Michael Mann and starred Al Pacino, Christopher Plummer, and won Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for Crowe. Gladiator 2000, director was Ridley Scott, one of my favorite directors, and the great mind behind Blade Runner and Alien. So anyway, it starred Ridley Scott. It didn't star Ridley Scott, although he was a star in a way. It was directed by Ridley Scott and starred Joaquin Phoenix, one of the finest living actors today, Richard Harris, and won 3 Oscars. Won Best Actor for Crowe. And most people have probably seen that. A colossus of arousing action. Okay, well, I think there's a lot more to it than just action, but thither it is. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of Russell Crowe pictures as a youngster, as a kid. Take a look. I mean, that's easy to see that is he. You can see it's he. So there's one. Here's another one as he's growing in some whiskers, getting a bit older. Why is it we all have to grow older? Well, that's kind of the premise of this show, and how to be able to enjoy yourself all the way through during the getting older period. And here is another one showing a little more age and extremely recognizable. So he turned out, or he didn't turn out, he was always one great person, it seems like, personally and definitely professionally. And then there was A Beautiful Mind, which I really enjoyed. I got it around here somewhere, but directed by Ron Howard and starred Jennifer Connelly, Ed Harris. What year was it? Oh, 2001. Wow. And Christopher Plummer again, and won 4 Oscars, one of them for Best Picture, which I thought it was. Master and Commander. Okay. Far Side of the World, 2003, directed by Peter Weir, who did other such greats as The Last Wave and Picnic in Hanging Rock, and this one. And this one won 2 Oscars. I thought this was really fascinating. So if you haven't seen it, see it. It is, it's really, like I say, it's fascinating. It was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. A lot of personality and character building for these people, and the why they did the things they did. So it won 2 Oscars. American Gangster, which I don't have a copy of right here. And that was directed by, again, Ridley Scott, starred Denzel Washington, Josh Brolin, and Idris Elba, who I thought he was going to be the next 007.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out that way, but I think he would have been a great one. Who is? Do you remember?
I don't know.
We can look that up.
I don't think it's been released.
Oh, so NASA Nelly from space, anyway, has not received any radiograms from Earth as to who that actually is. So there. So we also have a birthday for Francis Ford Coppola. And he was born yesterday. Born yesterday. Okay, it was a good movie, too. Didn't we talk about her last week?
Yes.
Yeah, anyway. Francis Ford Coppola was born on the 7th of 1939, making him 82 years old. He is older than I am and still alive, so that is very encouraging for us kids in their mid-70s. Although, I will, because I turned 76 a couple of weeks ago, I now consider myself late 70s. But so be it. And as we all know, Francis Ford Coppola is an American film director of 22 feature films, is also a producer and screenwriter and businessman and wine grower, grape grower, winemaker. He was a central figure in the new Hollywood filmmaking movement of the 1960s and 1970s. And Francis was born in Detroit, just like me. So see how much we have in common there. His father was a flutist with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And in those days, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra was very highfalutin, very well criticized. I think Antal people like that were ahead of it, in charge of it. They did a lot of recording on Mercury, and most all of those great recordings have been reissued again. And his grandfather was an Italian composer, and he contracted polio as a boy and was bedridden for long periods of time during his childhood. So I guess that goes back before the vaccine. He indulged his imagination and homemade puppet theater productions. Okay, beginning an interest in theater at 15, he created 8mm features from home movies. So we finally found somebody old enough not to have super 8mm films like everybody else we've talked about. This is actually 8mm. Francis was a mediocre student. Boy, we do have more in common. Oh no, I was a lousy student, that's right. But was interested in technology and engineering. he became proficient on the tuba, which is, I would never have thought, and won a music scholarship to the New York Military Academy. And after earning his theater arts degree in 1960, he enrolled in UCLA Film School, and some years later, Roger Corman hired Coppola as an assistant. And as you remember, he also hired James, the guy that did Cameron, also probably around that time. He became a dialogue director for the Tower of London and sound man for the Young Racers, which I don't remember, and an associate producer for The Terror, which was one of...
Jack Nicholson.
Huh?
Wasn't Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, one of Jack Nicholson's first endeavors, if not his absolute first. And Coppola directed his first feature film, Dementia 13, which I haven't seen in a while, but I have seen it. After he wrote a brief draft of the story, it impressed Corman enough to give him the go-ahead to make a low-budget horror movie. He shot Dementia 13, not in 13 days, in 9 days, and it later became a cult film, which it still kind of is. Coppola later became a member of a group of filmmakers, as we said earlier, known as the New Hollywood. Getting pretty middle-aged, if not older, Hollywood right now, which included Steven Spielberg, who I believe also went to UCLA after he was rejected by USC, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Terrence Malick, who I think is absolutely a great director, but doesn't do that much in directing. He does do a lot of writing, and a lot of it he doesn't even get screen credit for, but he's a great one. Robert Altman, who I really also just absolutely loved, and Woody Allen, William Friedkin, Philip Kaufman, and George Lucas. And The Godfather was a milestone as it received overwhelming positive reviews and fetched Coppola the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. It was also selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry. So here's a short list of Coppola films. The Godfather, 1972. But how about some pictures of Francis right now? There he is. Not sure how long ago that was. It was a bit ago, but since he doesn't look in his, 80s, I said, right?
George Lucas.
Yeah, and here he is with good old George. That's a pretty good picture. Both of them with their beards. I guess beards were popular back then, too. And they were, obviously, they were friends. They did, a bunch of stuff with or, bounced off each other. Oh, let me move that back a little bit where you can see a little bit more of it. Okay. And so here's those films we go over a little bit. The Godfather, 1972, won 3 Oscars, Best Picture, Best Actor for Marlon Brando, and Best Writing, and starred Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, Diane Keaton, and James Caan. Apocalypse Now was 1979, and boy, that was a great one. And 8 nominations for Academy Awards, 1 and 2, and starred Marlon Brando and Martin Sheen, who I guess had a heart attack somewhere in the middle of filming, but then continued. Robert Duvall, Dennis Hopper, and Harrison Ford. Now, Harrison Ford had a pretty small part near the beginning, but he was there all right. And here is this 2-record set. Well, what's in the back here? Yeah, 2-record set. Apocalypse Now, which I bought during that period of time when nobody wanted records. So it looked like there's a price tag of it of $3.99. Here's some of the pictures on the inside. And there is a longer version that I've seen also, and also worth watching if you have access to it. Then there's One from the Heart, 1981, starring Terry Garr, Harry Dean Stanton, Natasha Kinski, with music by Tom Waits and Crystal Gale. And I love Tom Waits, Crystal Gale, you know, whatever. There is, and this had a lot of small neon-covered little buildings and things that a friend of ours, what's his name?
Larry Albright.
Larry Albright, who also did all of the lighting and neon for the mothership for Close Encounters, which I've talked about. And when Francis Ford's, which I don't think we've mentioned here, he had a company, American Zoetrope, located in San Francisco. When they finally went under, a lot of that stuff was sold off. And actually, I ended up, some of that neon was again used in Blade Runner and even Star Wars. And I have a little bit of that actually hanging on walls here. So good for me. But I love that stuff, neon and things like that. Bram Stoker's Dracula was 1992 and won 3 Oscars and starred Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins. And I remember seeing that in the theaters back when it first came out. I was pretty much blown away by it. I think Winona Ryder was the first one that came to Francis Ford Coppola with that idea. And of course she was in it. Here's the soundtrack. And I really, really like this film. And as we've talked about before, a lot of the special effects were real. There was only one special effect that was computer generated. That was some smoke or some gizmo stuff that came in through a window. Other than that, everything in this was really done the old-fashioned way. And they took so many of the special, I was going to say special effects, but the most remembered scenes from Nosferatu, which we've talked about before, and they were repeated in this film. So it was a real homage to the earlier film also, and to the director, whose name NASA Nelly will tell me again, and Max whatever, the guy that played the original. So you can look it up even in space. No. So anyway, so that there's one movie that we didn't talk about that we should, and that's The Conversation. Oh, yeah. And The Conversation, I thought, is one of Coppola's best of all films. It's not a big blockbuster. It's what they call a smaller film, and it stars, what's his name? God, I'm old.
Conversation.
You know, you worked with his girlfriend at the art place, remember? So we'll have that for you in a moment because I'm just too old to remember. So The Conversation, absolutely a great one, and should take a look at.
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, of course. So it's my mind that needs to be hacked. I wonder if I should start taking some of the...
And who is Coppola's famous actor nephew?
Well, his nephew, of course, is...
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage, who I think is a great one on his own. And speaking of Dracula and Max Schreck, and the original Nosferatu, he did, the nephew did a film, I think it was the first from his original, from his production company, which is called Saturn. First film they did was called Shadow of the Vampire, and that too was about Max, the actor of that film, at being a real vampire, and it's extremely entertaining. So we're getting close to break time, but we're not quite there yet. So we'll get into our next birthday is also yesterday, and that's Billie Holiday, one of our greatest jazz-oriented singers. So it's also a part of Jazz Appreciation Month, which was last month, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if we need to mess with time, so be it. We'll mess with it and pull it into this month. And Grandpa, I'll let Grandpa speak, had a suggestion that we play a little of the music in the background when we talk about jazz and things like that. So after the break, we may give that a little try. It may work, it may not work, but we'll find out. But that'll be after our break.
Not now.
So, no, because we're going to
Alright.
break in 5 minutes, and, you know, that's okay. Get yourself ready to go. So, Billie Holiday was born on April 7th, 1915, and earned her wings in 1959. And let's get some pictures of her first. Oh, thank you. That is a small picture of a small Billie Holiday. So I hope that will show up. It may do and it may don't, but we will see. I'll look here in the, I'm kind of waiting for the, yeah, okay, it showed up. And here's a little bit bigger picture of a little bit older, kind of her in her prime, and her pet, I take it. We don't have the pet's name, do we?
I can find out.
No, it's okay. I mean, she's so important, we don't need it. I mean, the dog is very lucky to be a part of her life. And I'm sure the dog was well taken care of. And here she is, kind of in her prime, the way I remember seeing her. Not that I ever saw her in person, but wouldn't that have been a joy if I had seen her in person? So, and we have a couple more pictures. You know what? These two go with this record. And this is the record we're going to try to show you, try to hear. If not, this just came out on Acoustic Sounds, which they do great work. This is the sound of jazz with Billie Holiday, Count Basie. You can see the names on here. Jimmy Rushing, people like that. And let's take a look at the inside. I mean, this is just such a great album. It's 45 RPM, sounds like it was done yesterday with the best equipment. And actually, it probably was done with the best equipment at the time, which is still the best equipment today, as far as I know. Anyway, it's the sound of jazz, and it was, it's a recording that was made from a television show that was, well, we can get into a little more of that, but it was a television show on CBS, and it went on with different types of art forms and was recorded live, and I'm so happy it was recorded, because what I'm going to try to play is Fine and Mellow, which I've watched maybe 100 times or more on YouTube. Fine and Mellow. And it's got such a lineup of great people here. Let's see real quick. Fine and Mellow. Waldron. Lester Young is here. Coleman Hawkins. Ben Webster. I mean, it's not enough. Trombone, Mal Waldron. Piano, Joe Jones. And on and on and on. So.
And Jazz Appreciation Month is April.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jazz Appreciation Month is April. I thought we started that last month.
It was the first, yeah.
But, oh, okay. So we've got a couple of her other albums here. And here is one of my favorite. This one was also an audiophile pressing. And I've got like 2 or 3 copies of this, and I also have this on 45 RPM, single-sided. It's on 4 records, so 45 RPM takes 1 record, turns it into 2, and the single-sided is supposed to have made a better sound because there's no vibrations coming from the grooves underneath. Now, of course, it's now 4 records instead of 2, which was started out with 1. But if you're old like me, sometimes it's the only exercise you get. Okay. Here is another one. And I think it's probably a breakdown right after that. I'd have to show you that. Oh, I got 2 minutes, so that's plenty of time. Please don't talk about me when I'm gone, and that goes for me too, okay? So here is another one of her albums. Okay. What's inside here? Not a whole lot, but there's another. I don't want to take too much time with pictures that a lot of people can't see. Here is another great one. This was an original master recording, so it's a, oh, I see. This was Body and Soul, and it came out again as original master recording, which would have been, what's the thing we spent so much money on those records? Mobile Fidelity, of course. And then this particular copy was the Mobile Fidelity transcribed by Acoustic Sounds again. So be it, I think. No, it's still a Mobile Fidelity. Anyway, a really good one. There you go. And with that, we've got to take a break, get caught up on the news, good, bad, or indifferent. So enjoy the short break, and we will have you back here in a couple of minutes. So stick with us, please. And remember, Ron Siegel will be joining us at 4:30. So speak with you then. Take care.